ways to avoid war. So,
what do you think? I think that one of the biggest problems we have right now with keeping a small government and everything is the idea that people are brought up with now that we're entitled to everything and that the government's going to do everything for you. And obviously, even if we elect people that are fiscally conservative, and everybody, even people who are not well involved in politics but understand a little bit and are involved in it and want their congressmen to know what they think, they just assume that they're entitled to a lot of different things that the government does. And so how do you think that we would fix that? I mean, because there's no way that the congresspeople can keep getting elected if they're not helping give the people what they think, but it's just a mindset that's just overtaking America.
It is changing the mindset, but it's also electing some with some spine, and a lot of them don't have the spine to stand up for it. And there are different ways to approach it. For example, when McConnell ran this last time, he made the choice that people want entitlements, and I'll run on the platform, I can get more entitlements for you than a freshman Democrat can. That to me is not something that motivates me at all, to be a Republican or anything, because I might as well just be a Democrat or just, who can get me the most federal money. You have to change the mindset. You do have to ask some basic questions. For example, you have to be involved with the debate. Do you have a right to health care? Is it a right? Do you have a right to food? Well, no, see, the thing is, and it's very important, we need to know what are individual rights. Rights to me are abstractions. You have the right to pursue happiness, but you don't have the right to happiness. You don't have the right to anything concrete. You don't have a right to water or food or anything like that. Does that mean we have a humanitarian mission to help people? Yes. And that should we develop an economic system that helps the most people, which is capitalism? Yes. We have to change the mindset somewhat. And some would say it's too far gone, you'll never change these people. But I would say that you can get elected. There are a few. My father gets elected by never voting for any appropriations. The only appropriation he votes for is veterans' benefits, because he thinks they deserve to be paid if they went to war. But he votes for almost no other appropriations, and he gets a lot of flack, from his district. But it's flack from Republicans and Democrats. Republicans all have their hand out too, and so do the Democrats. So we've gotten an entitlement. Here in town, a lot of the people want the trans park. It's $100 million worth of federal money, and they just consider it free because we don't take it. Somebody else will. The downtown redevelopment's all money. It's federal or it's bonds. They think bonds are free. Well, someone's responsible for the bonds, and that's you and me. But I think there is room. You can stand up and be against entitlements, but you would have to make a promise. Like if I run for office, there's a pledge that people take not to raise taxes. I would take that pledge, but I'd go one step further, and I would pledge that I wouldn't vote for any budget that wasn't balanced, whether it was Republican or Democrat. Because see, all through the Bush years, all those deficits that mounted, 80% of the Republicans voted for those budgets, even people who you think are conservative. Ron Lewis ran as a conservative all the time. He voted for every one of Bush's budgets that were all in deficit, and then he finished his term in office by voting for an $800 billion bank bailout. I don't think there was anything conservative about it. But we tend to say he's conservative because he's a Republican. And that's why we need to self-examine. But you need new leaders. You need people that will go up and say the federal government should be doing this.
Speaking of new leaders, we have one. And his whole campaign was based on change. And it was so effective that even his contender, John McCain, introduced change in his campaign rhetoric at the end of his campaign. We are definitely having change. It may not be the kind that was envisioned by the people when they voted, but we are having a change. I say all that to say this. There are a couple of issues that are foundational to all of this. Everything you say is accurate, it's valid, it has merit, it has a place, but we don't have a response. We have, 500 and some people that are elected and appointed in Washington, D.C. that control $300 million that put them there. And of those 500 or so, we have a few in the House of Representatives, like your father, like maybe Dennis Kucinich. To be fair, the Democrats have some too. And I don't want to get into, the personalities and the politics. But the bottom line is, how do we know that the rhetoric and the rationale is going to stop and that a real mindset change is going to take place to reintroduce the fabric of what made this country great. You mentioned that maybe there are some people who think maybe it's too late. The window is closed. What do you and your father see in our future to address that foundational problem?
Well, I think that's a good question. That builds on her question back there too. What might happen that could allow this change? Is an utter economic calamity so bad that you'll get something new out of it? And, you know, I mentioned the Weimar Republic in the 1920s. When the money became worthless, then you did get a massive change, a real change, but unfortunately you got Hitler, because Hitler came out of the deprivation of the Treaty of Versailles as well as the destruction of the money. If we have something so calamitous, you know, it's kind of like what my dad says about, you can agree or disagree with whether we should have this expansionist foreign policy. His point is, there's no money left. You don't have a choice anymore. The money is gone. We're not able to borrow it from foreigners anymore, and we're printing up so much of it that there may be a calamity with the currency. So I think what needs to happen is there do need to be new people out there. Hopefully people here go and do something, help a candidate run for office, do something. But maybe out of calamity we do get a change. But you can get a change both ways. And I've been giving a talk talking about the financial crisis, and I tell them, we lost after the Depression. We lost for 50, 60 years the battle over what caused the Depression. Everybody said it was laissez-faire capitalism. That debate is going on once again, and they're telling you that the financial panic was laissez-faire capitalism. But I'm here to tell you that we have 73,000 pages of regulations. Over half of the cabinet members are involved with regulating the economy. Everywhere you look, there are regulations in our economy. This was not laissez-faire capitalism. What this was, pure and simply, was the Federal Reserve keeping the interest rate below the market rate. If you allow the interest rate to rise, the economy will slow down. If you keep it below the market rate, people will overinvest. People overinvested in houses because the interest rates were so low, and nobody predicted the turning tide. Other people say it was stupidity or it was greed. I think those are ridiculous arguments too. Greed is just what you call somebody's profit that you don't like. There's profit all the time, and self-interest is what drives. That's the invisible hand that drove the economy, according to Adam Smith. Stupidity, these people made loans with no money down because they could make money off of it. The reason they could make money off of it is because the price of homes was going like this. The reason the price of homes was going like this is because the interest rate was close to zero. When the tide turned, when the home prices changed, it was the first time that home prices had fallen in 60 years. Since the Great Depression, it had gone forward. But after the Great Depression, we lost, and most of the universities became populated with people, and still probably are to a large extent populated with people who believe the Great Depression was caused by capitalism, or vagaries and inefficiencies or insufficiencies to capitalism. Although I'd say here at Western, I'm amazed at how many conservative professors I meet. I've probably met 5 or 6 in the economics department. They're all libertarian conservatives. And I don't want to describe Dr. Wolf, but I think he's probably fairly conservative. So I think you do have some good professors out there. But you have to win the intellectual battle, and that's why you don't give up on this. And when someone tells you it was greed and stupidity and capitalism that caused this financial crisis, you have to tell them no, it was the Federal Reserve that caused this, or it was also the Community Reinvestment Act combined with that. The Community Reinvestment Act is where they said you don't need to have standards for people because we want everyone to have a home. And so the lowering of how much money had to be a down payment and how many people could get a loan was a government project, the Community Reinvestment Act, promoted mostly by the Democrats who now want to blame it all on the Republicans. So you have to be careful about the blame game. You have to understand these things and explain them to your friends as well. But I think out of this there is room, and there may be something so severe. You know, my personal prediction is, and this you can take with a grain of salt, I think we're going to have